Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week we are back on the Frankenhauler. Hey guys, welcome back, and if you've been watching and following, this used to be a Toyota Coaster bus that is now been stripped back to the bare bones and is going to be turning into my 1954 Ford F600 Frankenhauler build. If you missed the last episode, I'll put up a link up above so you can catch up, and like always, do the things like and comment, that all helps with the crazy algorithm. So last week we got the engine mounted 240 millimeters back in the chassis. I made up new engine mounts and changed over the sump and a whole bunch of bits and pieces. So some of the comments that arose, there were a lot of people saying, when I moved back the gearbox mount, couldn't I just move the engine backwards or forwards another sort of 20 millimeters or so to line up those gearbox mounts and just use the factory mount? But the issue was that it also sat too low. I have raised it up, so that's why I needed the new gearbox mounts anyway, so it all worked fine, and I'm very happy with those mounts. There are a couple of people questioning about the angle of the drive shafts, and it's all within the tolerances. You can have a maximum of, I think, is it 3 degrees on a universal joint tail shaft, and that's all very easy, and it's not much of an angle change, and I can sort that all out. That's not a problem. I had much more of a headache in the Ferrari getting that all lined up. If you want to go back and watch that series, that was quite a headache, and I managed to get that working all fine. So as far as the Ferrari goes, I'm not sure on the timelines of this and how I'm going to release the videos, but I took the Ferrari yesterday to get engineered, and that all passed with flying colours. The engineer was very happy with it, and we have a bit of paperwork to go before we can actually get it on the road, but basically it's passed its tests, so it's just a matter of writing a report and a couple other things, and then it will actually have plates on it. So I look forward to that, but we definitely have plenty to keep us going on the Frankenhauler. So to start with today, I need to remove this engine and get back in there and see if we can do something about those big end bearings. All right, well, I'm back to where I was a week or so ago. I pulled off the main cap, and last time I realized I'd bought big end bearings. Sorry, I bought main bearings and I needed big end bearings. I've now gone and bought the correct bearings, so these are definitely the right size. They are standard size bearings. So with a crank, when you redo engines, often they will, if there's some wear, you get the crank machined, and obviously those journals will get smaller. What you then need to do is you need to get slightly thicker bearings to take up that slap, because there's supposed to be a certain amount of clearance on the bearings. And the way to test that, now I did measure the crank with a micrometer, and it was within spec, so it doesn't appear to have been ground. So that is good. So that's why I've gone with standard size bearings, but to double check, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this, which is plastic gauge. So basically what this is it's a thin piece of plastic or wax or something that you just lay little strips in, bolt everything up and torque it up to spec to test it, pull it back off again, and it will squish this, this sort of wax down onto the bearing, and by using the little marks that are along the edge of this, it will tell you exactly what the tolerance is in there. And yeah, I'll do it now. Let's see how it goes. We have our little bits of plastic gauge that have been stuck in, and we have our little marks on the piece of paper. And if I line it up and sort of have a look at what the marks are, so having a look, it looks like it's about 0.76 of a millimetre. The limit is 0.1 of a millimetre, and we're still under that. So I'm happy to run it. So now I'm just going to clean off the surface. I'm going to clean up the crank. I'm going to put some assembly lube on it. And then torque them up and go through and change all of the big end bearings. So now just go through and change all of the big end bearings one at a time. And to tighten, they are tightened to 37 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. So once all of those are done, I go in and bolt in my new rear oil pickup, because obviously before I had a front sump, now with a rear sump, it's a rear oil pickup, and then go around with a razor blade and clean all of the previous goop off of the edges of where the sump will bolt on. Put on a bit of gasket maker, spread it out so I've got a nice layer all the way around. Also making sure I put a little bit around where the oil level light goes. All right, basic maintenance is done. The sump is changed over. That's permanently on there. I did tag the oil cap and put just a piece of tape on there saying no oil, because it currently does not have any oil in it. So as a reminder before I try and even start it. But the next thing I need to do is I need to go back and just finish off reinforcing those front engine mounts from last week. So using a very basic cardboard template, I then transferred that into CAD and then cut it out with the plasma table. Bit of weld through primer before I then tack on and weld on all of the reinforcements and make sure that they're nice, solid engine mounts that are never going to go anywhere. And with all the welding done, I give it a good clean and then hit it all with the black enamel to make it disappear. All right, and it's all painted in, and that is looking really nice. So you probably wouldn't even know that it has been modified at all now, and that's the way I like it. All right, engine's in, and it's hopefully where it's going to stay. And the next sort of big job is to mount the cab and get that where it needs to stay. But before we go that far, what I think I want to do is, I've got a few bits and pieces lying around. I want to bolt them back onto the engine for the time being. Let's keep everything together in one spot, so hopefully the engine won't have to come out again. That's where it is, and that will stay there till the end of the job. But I've still got things like the alternator that I need to clean up, so let's get onto that. Just bolt some bits back on, and then we can start looking at the cab. So I'm just using wire wheels to take all the oxidization off of the alternator. It is going to oxidize again. It's just to tidy up a bit without pulling it apart and painting it, as I don't want to get
paint all through the windings.
All right, so mounting the cab is my next challenge, and after doing a bunch of measuring, the frame rails of the coaster bus are actually the identical width of what the truck was. And this is the original cab mount, the front cab mount. And when I did all my measurements, it essentially lines up perfectly with these original cab mounts of the coaster. Now, the only issue I found is that I cut both of these mounts off because I knew I wanted to probably repurpose them. And I have torn everything apart multiple times and I can only find one. So I'm going to use this one on this side. I'm going to make up my own for the other side. But basically, this is pretty much what I need anyway. So let's start modifying this mount so that it will work and actually we can put my cab on hopefully and it will be exactly where it needs to be.
So after quickly sandblasting the old body mount, I start to work out the exact position of where I need it to be. And now I need to start designing up the passenger side cab mount, which I obviously don't have one of, so I need to make something work. Once I'm happy with the cardboard template, I then transfer that all into CAD, so then I can cut it out on the plasma table.
I kind of stuffed up a little bit with my placement of my piece. So the torch stopped here, so I had to sort of mess around and managed to start the program again and finish off the cut. I just have to cut this little bit here by hand and there'll be a little bit of a jog in that, which is completely fine. So let's get this out, cut it up and see if we can actually bend this into the shape that I want. All right, last time I did this on the engine mounts, I made these sort of relief holes, but I wasn't entirely happy with how big the slots were that I made. So this time I just actually got the plasma to cut in these little indents so I know where I need my folds to be, and same with some circles on this end. And I just ran through it most of the way through with the angle grinder, so now I can bend this into shape and then weld up the gap without having this sort of big gap that I had last time. So let's see how this one works. So now we have the original cab mount over this side, sort of mostly ready to go, and the new cab mount that I built over on this side, which I think is looking very nice. There's a bunch of holes here for plug welding, and yeah, there should be plenty of space there to weld that on nice and securely. This one, again, same thing. I'm going to make some more gussets and stuff up to secure this on permanently when it gets on there, but for the time being, we're going to clean it up and tack on both cab mounts and try the cab just to make sure everything's right before we weld it in solid.
So I start by cleaning off some bare metal so that I can weld on the mounts. And once they're tacked into place, I can then start getting the cab ready to mount back onto the chassis. Thankfully, it is very light, so I can sort of struggle through and manage it by myself.
All right, and the cab is mounted. It is sitting in the perfect spot. And if we actually have a look, you can actually see through the holes to the where the cab mounts are. Same on the other side. The cab is in the right spot. So now let's move the cab out of the way and weld them up solid, because that is where they are staying. All right, a little bit more contemplation, and I do have a cab mount kit for the 54 F600. These were originally mounted on rubber bushings. Now, this is going to be something that some of you may disagree with, but I'm going to remove all of that, remove the rubber bushings, remove the other mounts, and I'm going to hard mount the cab to the chassis. That is what the bus had originally. So the original rails, this is some of the original bus rails, and these bolted straight on to the mounts on the chassis. So it was all solid mounted. Back in the 50s when they built these, there wouldn't have been the level of sound deadening and things like that that are available today. And I can sort of see with the more modern suspension, shock absorbers, all the rest of it, and the fact that this was always hard mounted as a bus anyway, I don't see an issue with hard mounting the cab on here. Keep it nice and solid, stops any flex in the system for my other components like steering and everything else. It just makes it simpler. The engine has really good engine mounts, probably much better than they would have originally had when they first built these old trucks. So I'm happy with that. Let's get rid of these mounts, because the other benefit of doing that is if I can get rid of these mounts, I can drop it down that little bit lower. I don't have much room to in the floor until I hit the gearbox. I don't need it that much lower anyway, but as low as I can get it. So let's get these mounts off, and yeah, let's go with that.
So here I'm just cutting the edges of the body mount cups off, but I'm still keeping the structure there. And now I permanently weld in the front cab mounts.
All right, we have that side welded on. And this side all welded on, looking nice and neat and tidy. I think that is going to be a nice, solid cab mount. All right, we have the front mounts sorted, and now we need to work on the rear cab mounts. Now, this is the rusted out bit that I cut off, but this was the rear cab mount previously. So it's got a bolt here, and it's got this weird sort of angled bracket that would come out from either side, and that would be sort of have rubber bushings on it and sort of hold it into place. And it's quite an odd type of arrangement. Obviously allowed for a little bit of movement maybe, and just sort of, again, not something I'm going to keep for the future of the cab. Now, if you were watching when I repaired the cab, I actually put a big piece of square tubing in the back of the cab, and that's what I'm going to use moving forward. I'm going to have that mounting points going through that, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the some of these other mounting points that were used for the bus, use them again on the back and reinforce them like the others, and I think that should be the perfect idea for the cab. So let's start cutting these mounts off.
So once I've cut the mounts off, I start measuring up the cab for their new mounting place.
All right, so now I've got some holes drilled into the rear of the cab for the rear cab mounts, and to bolt it down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse the bolting system that was used on the bus. It seems like a really good way of doing it. I have the original cab bolts from the bus, and this is actually some of the flooring of the bus, and there's actually inside here is some captive nuts that have actually sort of been loosely held in there. I'm going to drill them out and reuse them and weld them in into the braces on the chassis, so I can then just use the factory Toyota bolts to bolt it all down. It'll be nice and secure. So let's start drilling these out. All right, so that is what I just drilled the spot welds out of. So it's got a the sort of the loose nut behind that's held in by this cage. So you have a little bit of adjustability there in the bolt positions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount them into the bottom of these mounts. So then you can just sit the cab on and bolt it straight in. The nuts are captive in location. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, so the cab is on and it's all sitting nice and square and even everywhere. I've lined up all of the mount holes are correct. The rear mount holes are bolted on, and I've got the back sitting square, and I've leveled it up. I've got a block of wood under here I kept playing around with different heights to get the level correct, using my angle finder to get the cab level with the chassis rails. So now I've got these here, I can tack them into place, clean this up, tack them into place, and then I can go through and start reinforcing them and making sure that they are solid enough to do the job. Of course, I just tacked it in and remembered that I actually want to reinforce the floor where the mounts go, so let's make some reinforcing plates.
And of course I tried to remove the cab before I cut the tack welds off. And now I'm making up my reinforcing plates. Bit of weld through primer, and then I can just start welding them on. They are that odd shape just because they're the scraps that I had lying around, but they will do the job nicely and spread the load. Then, as before, I bolt on the mounts and get everything in the correct place before tacking them in. And now they're welded on, I need to make some reinforcing, and you can see here that I'm cleaning it all up, and I've got my little reinforcing plates that I'm now tacking on and then welding in solid. All of this is 5mm steel plate, which is going to be super strong for the cab mounts. Then, as per before, I clean everything up, a little bit of masking on the engine, nothing crazy, and then back over with the black enamel.
All right, that is a huge milestone, and the cab is now mounted properly, reinforced, it's all good. I am happy now that the cab is not going to go anywhere. It will have to come off again when I'm painting the floor, underside and things like that. But I didn't want to do that until I've done modifying everything else, because I've got gear sticks to go in, I've got pedals, I've got a whole bunch of stuff to do. So it will come on and off again a few times, but the engine should stay where it is. I am very happy with the progress we've made. We actually have it looking like a truck now, like it is going to look. So maybe before we wrap it up, I just want to bolt some guards on again. Just have a look at the front end again, mostly together. Okay, so we've got the cab back on now. It's not quite the way it's going to be. Like you can see, this steering box still needs to be moved rearward behind where this is going to go. This headlight panel and bumper panel's got to come forward and also lower down slightly, because these rails on the bus actually kick up. So they will have to be, I'll just notch basically up into here and just change that, and you won't even notice it once I've finished all that. So that's still to come, obviously. But the basic shape is here. We have the cab on, the wheels sitting nicely in the wheel arch, and we now have the truck cab mounted securely. So we have the cab and the engine securely mounted, and I am very, very happy with where we're at. Also, obviously, the main bearings are changed, or big end bearings, I should say, are changed in the engine. Just some of that maintenance stuff is done. I won't be working on this next week, because next week I am off to World Time Attack with the AlphaRari with Link. So I'll be on the Link stand. If any of you want to come and say hello, come and see the AlphaRari in person. So I'll see you guys at Eastern Creek, but that is all we have time for today. So I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, by 1918, half of all cars in the US were Model T Fords. Now in Henry Ford's autobiography, he reported that he said in 1909 that a customer can have a car in any colour as long as it's painted black. However, between 1908 and 1913, Model T Fords were not actually available in black. In fact, they were only available in grey, green, red and blue. Green was available for the coupes, the town cars, the touring cars and the landaules. Grey was only for the town cars, and red was also only for the touring cars. By 1912, all cars were painted midnight blue, and it wasn't until 1914 that the any colour as long as it's black was implemented. Black was primarily chosen because it is the cheapest pigment available.
All right, we have a cab mounted, we have an engine mounted. It's getting there now. It's going to be getting into the fun stuff, is sorting out steering and pedals and all those other things. So hopefully you'll join me for that. But at least for the time being, next week I'm going to be on the AlphaRari. And don't forget to come and say hi at World Time Attack next weekend. Should be a lot of fun. I'll be on the Link stand, as I mentioned before. So yeah, just come and see us. Or right. At least me. Mrs. Jeff may or may not.
May or may not. Like, subscribe, let Jeff know what you think of the videos. He loves reading your comments. And as always, if you want to help him out in his journey of doing the same thing multiple times.
It's worth doing. It's worth doing twice.
Many times. Patreon is always appreciated. And you see the videos a day early with no ads. Other than that, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you next time.
See you next time.
See you guys.
Bye. That customers can have a car in any colour, and as it was reported in Henry Ford's autobiography, it's a bit of a weird line. Now in Henry Ford's autobiography, he said in 1909 he can have, oh my God, why is this so hard? Green was available for the touring cars, the landaules, the town cars, and the coupes.